What's up, everybody? It's Joe from JLW Games coming at you with another cool video back in Planet Coaster with the recreation series with Valravn. So the last episode we created the layout, and this episode we're going to be doing scenery and the station and finishing up overall. Now this is going to be the last episode for Valravn. Now by no means is the scenery accurate. It's actually probably far from it. It is probably will not resemble much of Valravn. I mean, I tried to make it resemble Valravn quite a bit, but it is far from perfect. And there are a couple pauses in the video, just a little bit, where I'm actually kind of looking at some reference photos and stuff to try and get it the best I can. So this is kind of a different interpretation of what Valravn will be because I can't do the environment around it very well. So I did the queue line just kind of in a way that's close, and I couldn't get any great pictures of the station that would help me that much. So I just kind of went off as best as I could. So the main part is that we get the layout as close as possible, am I right? So this station is kind of improvised and not 100% accurate. Same with the path that I do, it's not accurate, and I'll be the first to say that before everyone in the comments saying, hey, that's not right, that's not accurate. You know, it's like this and it's like this. But I'm not going for that, or 100% anyways. I thought I'd try and go with a look that was close to the ride, but in a way, and kind of added my own touch to it to make it kind of original, kind of. And I know people aren't going to like it, or there's going to be people that, you know, that actually ridden the ride. I've never actually ridden the ride yet. I will be riding it next month, but not yet. So, again, I've never ridden this ride. I've never been to Cedar Point, and I've never seen the ride for myself. I've only seen a couple videos of it, and I tried to get some reference photos to get as close as possible. I was a little nervous about recreating the area around the ride because I don't know the area at all. So, I just don't want people to judge it too much because it's not that great. You know, it doesn't turn out amazing, but I think it turns out decent for what it is. So anyways, the main part, of course, is just I wanted the layout to be as best as possible, and that's the main part of it. So, and you never know, I may come back and redo this recreation again once the full game's released and we have more things to do, and I'd have visited the park by then. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I do actually attempt to make the transfer table as well, which actually I think turned out the most accurate out of everything I actually did here. And again, for the color scheme for the ride, I wanted to have the blue the blue catwalks and stuff, so I had to have the blue cross ties, which is kind of suckish. And I hope that in the future that we have, you know, we do have have colors for all the cross ties. You know, cross ties is separate from the catwalk and stuff. And I hope it's all separate and at the end. So this is me making the transfer table for the ride, which turned out okay in my opinion. I wanted to actually put a actual track on the place, but I actually could not get that completed the way I wanted it to. So I was just looking at some reference photos that, or I couldn't get a great or up close look at this building very much, but it's just kind of an average little structure. It doesn't really resemble much of a building, but it's more of a structure that looks to be like the transfer table and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool. It turned out it turned out okay. You know, it could have been more accurate, but I thought the transfer table looked pretty good, in my opinion. So that looked cool. And eventually, apparently in the game, we're going to have transfer tracks in the end anyways, in the future of the game. So I can't wait for that. That's going to be kind of really cool. So, but anyways, I had a couple of flaws here and went ahead and fixed them. And again, the pathway I was most intimidated by because Valravn has a very interactive it's very interactive with the paths and stuff, so you can get some really good shots of the ride, or some really good places on the ride where you can actually see it real well. I tried to get the textures as best as I could as well, and there's kind of a lot of like little plaza parts in the middle of the ride, which is kind of neat. And I was just going off reference photos again and tried to make it as best as I could, and it ended up turning out to be kind of inaccurate in the end. But I decided to leave it at that because it's not exactly accurate in the first place. So that's that, and hopefully that works out in the long run for what it is. And I don't do too much, again, with the scenery and pathways. It's mostly just because I can't really create the environment for the ride. And again, I might come back to this when I'm a little bit more skilled at scenery and pathways and stuff. And I have no clue how the layout is for the queue line, and so I just kind of improvise and go with what I can. So I actually used the opportunity to get rid of some of these supports. It actually looked looked regularly supported like a B&M, because these are a little bit over supported for a B&M coaster, and got rid of a couple of them just using these using this pathway. So I thought it actually ended up making it a little bit more realistic. Decided to keep that one there because it was getting a little bit too less. But there's a lot of queue line right under the lift hill, so I thought I'd do that and just kind of go with that in the way. As for the exit, this is where I'm really looking at the exit like, oh my god, how does this work? At first I thought it exited to the left, but I actually think the ride exits to the other direction opposite from here, because I saw a pathway connecting to this little plaza over here, and I didn't know where it actually led to. I assumed it was the exit. Then I saw another reference photo that actually had it looked like it went to the other way. So I ended up actually doing it both ways, which is kind of the funny part. I've never been to Cedar Point again, so I have no clue how this actually works or how it looks in the long run. And I wanted it to resemble the area a little bit, but not so much so to where it wasn't original. So it is kind of going to remain a little bit of original. And this is me trying to create a circle with the hedges. I wish they had kind of like a more circular things to use for these edge or path bricks ways and stuff, because it's doesn't look the greatest, but it's what I went with in the end, because it's about all I had. So it didn't look really good, but especially the smaller one kind of looked kind of terrible. So I just stuck some signs in there and called it good. But anyways, the area itself, I don't do too much more, except for the entrance getting connected to the pathway over here, and I pretty much just throw some trees around the area to give it more of an environment than what it is, because I can't put the environment really of Cedar Point in there, because it would require more roller coasters and stuff like that, because there's like roller coasters left and right by Valravn anyways. I was thinking about putting the pathway that goes to the back side of it on after the Emmelman and over there by the last inversion, but I decided not to and just left it at this much of pathway, which I know won't be used because of Planet's Coaster's AI and their guests. If there's nothing over there, they will not walk over there. So that's kind of an interesting idea. But I thought this would work out in a kind of awkward way, and I thought it did turn out well. I could have probably used a different texture for the queue line, because you can't make queue lines like you can in real life in a way. Like, Valravn's queue lines, Gatekeeper's queue lines, it has kind of like, it's a really thin, which you can make them thinner, but it's all kind of square and rectangular, not rounded at all. And when you turn the curves, it's pretty rounded on these. So if you could have like a gate and the fences, or kind of like those steel or metal bars, that are just silver, it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but I wanted to create some sort of, you know, perimeter guidelines here, at least some fences around the ride, so it wouldn't look like you could just go up there and walk up and touch the track. You can't have that in your parks, otherwise your guests would do it and end up being killed when they try to get too close of a look at the ride, and we couldn't have that. So anyways, there will be a cinematic video of this ride, hopefully just in a couple of days, I'm hoping. We'll have a POV footage, off-ride footage, and stuff like that. It won't be too huge of a video because it's just based around one ride, unlike, you know, Mystic Bay, which that cinematic video will probably take a while before I get that out. But I'm going to be doing some video tests on it as well to hopefully get that video going as well. And made this little wooden barrier around the ride, which ended up looking quite nice in the end. So one thing that took a while was foliage and trees, and I think that's where I actually start on here. And I just kind of surround it with some trees and stuff just to kind of give it a nice, just to give it a little bit of environment. You know, this isn't particularly in Cedar Point, but it's the design of Cedar Point's ride. So, and it's still called Valravn and stuff. So this is just a recreation. The purpose of this is just recreating the ride, not the park, not the parts around the ride, but mostly just the ride itself, so the layout. And I try to get the station as close as possible, but again, it's mostly just for the layout purpose of it. And I thought the layout turned out pretty nice. And, you know, I had a couple comments saying that the emblem should have been bigger, or the drop should have leveled out a little bit quicker. But I compared it, and I actually think the drop was pretty close, to be honest. And the emblem, I think, is actually just is probably just a little bit taller. But after, you know, with mine, I can't really make it much taller. It already goes through the emblem pretty slow. And it's just at the speed I want it. So that's kind of the reasoning behind the emblem being a little bit shorter, is because the car itself doesn't go through the emblem very fast. And I think the scale of the ride was just slightly too small, because when you get towards the end, it's a little bit closer to the ground than it's probably supposed to be. So I end up just connecting the pathway up to here so the guests can get to it, and I have a video with, you know, guests on the ride just for fun. And for the ending, I just pretty much make these curbs alongside the pathway so there's something there, and I don't end up making a fence in the end, but I think it works out just fine. And when we get more aspects of the game, closer to when the game's release, or even during the game's release, I might try and recreate this again to make it look a little bit better. So anyways, this is the first recreation I've ever really done, period. I've never really made any recreations for any coasters or rides or parks themselves, because I thought it was just too much of a challenge, and that people would judge, you know, like if it's their home park, go off about how inaccurate it is and stuff like that. But if it's, you know, if a park looks good, even if it is a recreation and it's different, you know, and something's not completely right, but it still looks great, I still think it deserves, you know, to get a thumbs up and stuff, and deserves some, you know, good saying about it, you know, it's not inaccurate, but it looks awesome. In fact, it looks better than the real park, or sometimes, you know, stuff like that. And you gotta understand, in these games, you're limited because you don't have the exact pieces you need for recreation sometimes. And that's one thing, since we don't have user-generated content in this game yet, we probably can't really recreate certain aspects of the game as best as we can. But anyways, that's Valravn. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next, and have a great day and an even cooler tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys, and goodbye.